In a kingdom far away, surrounded by green hills and curving rivers, there was a wise and beloved king named Buzugbe. His rule had brought peace and prosperity to the land, and the people loved him dearly. His kingdom was rich with food, happiness, and laughter. The king's son Akpala was studying in England, learning the ways of leadership and governance. The villagers knew that one day Akpala would return and continue his father's great work. But one day, something unexpected happened. King Buzugbe fell ill. It started with a small cough, but soon he could hardly breathe. His body became weak, and the color in his face faded. The chief priest Oluwaseun came to the palace to help. He placed his hands on the king's forehead, muttering prayers in ancient words, but nothing changed. The herbalists brought their best medicine, roots, leaves, and potions, but the king only grew weaker. Oluwa, what is happening to our king? One of the elders asked, his voice trembling with fear. Why is he not getting better? Oluwaseun, the chief priest, looked at the elders, his face full of worry. I have done all I can. The gods are silent. I fear King Buzugbe's time is near. The news spread like wildfire through the kingdom. The people gathered at the palace gates, their hearts heavy with sorrow. For days, they prayed and waited, but no miracle came. The king's illness took him slowly until one fateful morning, he passed away quietly in his sleep. The whole kingdom mourned. Women wept, men cried silently, and children asked, why did the king leave us? The skies seemed to weep as well, as heavy clouds covered the sun. At the royal palace, the elders gathered to announce the death of their king. The king has gone to join our ancestors, the elder said, but the throne must not remain empty. The prince must return and take his place. The village sounded a sorrowful cry, but in their hearts, they knew what must be done. Prince Akpala, who had been studying in England, was the rightful heir to the throne. News of King Buzugbe's death reached Akpala quickly. He had been living far away in England, studying the ways of leadership, diplomacy, and governance. But the news brought him back to the kingdom without delay. My father is gone, he said to himself in disbelief. I must return home at once. The journey was long and tiring, but nothing could stop Akpala from coming back to the land that called him. When he finally arrived at the palace, his heart was heavy. As he stepped into the royal courtyard, the people gathered around, watching silently. Akpala was not just returning home, he was returning to take on the heavy crown of leadership. The elders met him at the gates, and they wasted no time in reminding him of the kingdom traditions. Akpala, you are now our king, but you must fulfill the customs before you can take the throne. Elder Olamide said, his voice deep with wisdom. Akpala looked confused. What customs? You must marry before you can be crowned. Elder Olamide continued, it is the way of our people. You must choose a wife from the 3 young women chosen for you. The woman who dances the best will be your queen. What? A dance? Akpala raised an eyebrow, surprised. Is this some kind of joke? The elder's face became serious. It is no joke, my prince. It is tradition. The woman who dances with grace, beauty, and strength will stand by your side as queen and help you rule. The people must see the woman who will lead them beside you. Akpala's mind raced. A dance? How can a dance be the thing that decides my queen? He thought. But the people were watching, and the elders had spoken. Akpala could not ignore the kingdom's ways. The sun rose high on the day of the great dance competition. The people of the kingdom filled the square, their faces full of excitement. It was a rare event, one that happened only when a new king was to be crowned. Today, they would watch the prince choose his bride, and they were eager to see who would win his heart. 3 young women stood in the center of the square, all dressed in beautiful clothes, their eyes shining with nervous anticipation. They were Adora, the daughter of a wealthy merchant, Kemi, a gentle and humble girl from a farming family, and Ngozi, the quiet daughter of the Anglican church priest. As the people murmured among themselves, the air was thick with excitement. The elders, standing by the prince, watched carefully, knowing how important this moment was. It was not just about the dance. It was about who would represent the kingdom. The woman chosen would be the future queen and stand beside the prince as they ruled the land. Prince Akpala sat on a raised platform, his eyes scanning the 3 women. His mind was filled with questions. Who will be the one? He wondered. He had no idea that this simple tradition would weigh so heavily on his heart. Let the dance begin, Elder Olamide called out, and the crowd went silent. It was time for the first dancer to step forward. Adora, the daughter of the wealthy merchant, was the first to dance. She had spent weeks preparing for this day, practicing her steps, rehearsing in front of mirrors. Her father, a man with deep pockets, had always told her that beauty and elegance would win hearts. Adora was beautiful, and she knew it. Today, she would show everyone that she was not only graceful, but the perfect choice for the prince. With a deep breath, she stepped forward and began to dance. Her movements were smooth and graceful, like the wind. She spun across the floor with a spin, her dress spinning in the air. The crowd cheered loudly, clapping and shouting praises for her. Adora! Adora! They yelled. Her feet moved like magic on the dusty ground, and she seemed to glide effortlessly. She spun again, and the crowd went wide. She was the picture of beauty and charm, and she made it look easy. Her dance was perfect, too perfect. But as Akpala watched her, something in his heart remained cold. There was no warmth in her movements, no life. She danced as though the whole performance was for her, not for the kingdom. She dances well, he thought, but does she have the spirit to lead this kingdom? As Adora finished her performance, the crowd erupted in applause. She gave a graceful bow and smiled brightly, her eyes searching the prince's face for approval. Akpala clapped along with the crowd, but deep down he felt unsure. She dances with beauty, he thought, but can she lead with kindness? He glanced at the elders, but no one spoke. It was clear they were all waiting for him to make his choice. Adora stood tall, her chest heaving with pride, but the prince did not smile. He simply nodded. "Thank you, Adora," he said, his voice calm but distant. "You've danced beautifully." The crowd clapped again, but the prince's words were not enough to fill the air with the same excitement. Adora smiled, but inside she felt a twinge of doubt. The tension in the air thickened as the second dancer, Kemi, took her place. Would her dance be the one to capture the prince's heart? Akpala was still lost in thought. Could Adora truly lead, or was there something else he was missing? This was only the beginning. The true test of leadership was yet to come. Next, it was Kemi's turn. She was a gentle soul from a farming family. The village knew her for her kind heart and her willingness to help anyone in need. When Kemi stepped forward to dance, the crowd fell silent, expecting something different. Unlike Adora, Kemi's dance was simple. She wasn't trying to impress anyone with flashy moves or spins. Her steps were slow and steady, but they were full of warmth and joy. She smiled as she danced, and her movements were filled with the love for her people. The crowd could feel the sincerity in every step she took. She even whispered, "She dances with the heart of a true queen." As Kemi danced, the villagers clapped along and their faces softened. They admired her for the way she connected with them. She wasn't just performing for the prince, she was dancing for her people, for the kingdom. But even though her dance was beautiful, Prince Akpala's face remained serious. As he watched her, he could see the goodness in her heart. Kemi's kindness was clear for everyone to see, but there was something missing. She has a heart of gold, Akpala thought, but can she lead the kingdom with the strength it needs? The prince's gaze shifted. He was looking for more than just kindness. Kemi's heart was pure, but to rule the kingdom, the queen needed wisdom, strength, and the ability to make difficult decisions. When Kemi finished her dance, the crowd clapped and she bowed gracefully. She looked to the prince, her face hopeful, but Akpala said nothing for a moment. He only nodded slowly as if lost in thought. "Thank you, Kemi," Akpala said after a long silence. "Your heart is kind and your dance is beautiful." Kemi smiled softly, but she knew the prince's words did not carry the weight of excitement. She had given all she could, but was it enough? The crowd cheered, but some could see the uncertainty in her eyes. As Kemi left the stage, Akpala sat quietly, still thinking. Kindness is important, he whispered to himself, but is it enough to rule the kingdom? The people began to murmur, wondering if Kemi's dance would be enough to win the prince's heart. But the most important dance was yet to come. Before Ngozi stepped forward to dance, she quietly walked away from the crowd. Her mind was calm, but her heart was heavy. She had spent much of her life in the background, helping her father at the church, living a humble life and learning the ways of love and service. Today, however, was different. Today, she was standing in front of everyone, not just as a girl, but as a possible future queen. Ngozi made her way to the river that ran near the village. The sound of the water rushing over the rocks was soothing, and she took a deep breath, allowing the peace of the moment to calm her mind. She knelt down at the river bank, closing her eyes. "Lord," she whispered, her voice soft but clear, "I ask not for victory, not for fame, nor for wealth. I ask only for strength. I ask for wisdom to do what is right, for courage to face what lies ahead, and for guidance to help the prince make the right choice for this kingdom." Her words were simple, but they came from the depths of her heart. Let my dance reflect who I truly am. Let it show the values my father taught me: honesty, love, and service to others. As she sat by the river, Ngozi thought about the kingdom. It wasn't about being the best dancer, the most beautiful, or the most charming. It was about being strong enough to serve, wise enough to lead, and humble enough to care for the people. The moment she stood up from the river, Ngozi felt a calmness she had never known before. The weight of the competition seemed to melt away. She didn't care if she won. All she wanted was to be true to herself and to give everything she had for the good of the people. As she walked back to the village square, her heart was light. She didn't know what would happen, but she knew she had prayed for the right reasons. It was time to dance, not for the prince, not for the people, but for the kingdom's future. When she returned to the square, the crowd had settled, waiting for her turn. The air was thick with anticipation. The prince sat with his hands folded, watching her carefully. With a deep breath, Ngozi stepped into the center. Her eyes met the prince's for a moment, but she quickly looked down, focusing only on the music that began to play. Unlike the other dancers, Ngozi's movements were not fast or flashy. Her steps were slow, measured. With each movement, she poured her heart into the dance. She didn't spin for beauty. She didn't move for applause. Every step was a prayer for the kingdom, for the people, and for the prince. As the music played, it was as though the whole world disappeared. There was only the rhythm of her dance and the stillness in her heart. The crowd watched in silence. They were not clapping, not cheering. They were simply watching the quiet strength of this girl who danced not for herself, but for something greater than herself. When the dance ended, there was no loud cheer. The square was quiet. The prince sat still, his eyes fixed on Ngozi, not just as a dancer, but as a leader. "Thank you, Ngozi," he finally said, his voice soft. "You have danced with your heart. You have danced with the spirit of this kingdom." The villagers were silent for a moment. The crowd felt something they hadn't felt before. Peace. They looked at each other, whispering, but none of them knew what to say. They had witnessed something different today. As Ngozi bowed and left the stage, her heart was calm. She had given everything she had. What came next was in the hands of the prince. The tension was thick in the air. Who would he choose? Could it be Adora with her beauty and charm? Would it be Kemi with her kindness and warmth? Or would it be Ngozi with her quiet strength and deep faith? The prince had seen three very different women, and now he had to make his choice. The future of the kingdom rested on his decision. Prince Akpala stood, his heart heavy with the decision he had to make. He had seen kindness, he had seen beauty, but in Ngozi's dance, he had seen something much more, something rare. He looked into her eyes as she stood with her hands folded in front of her, waiting for what would come next. He knew who she was, and it wasn't just her dance. It was the heart behind it that spoke volumes. The square remained still, the tension almost unbearable. People were waiting for the prince to speak, but for a long time, Akpala didn't move. He stood, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes on Ngozi. His heart was heavy with the weight of the decision he was about to make. Finally, the prince spoke. His voice was steady but firm. "I have seen grace," he began, his eyes sweeping over the three young women. "I have seen kindness, and I have seen beauty. But what I have seen in Ngozi's dance is something much deeper." The villagers whispered to each other, wondering what he meant. Most had expected him to choose Adora with her charm and elegance. Others thought he might pick Kemi with her kind and loving nature. But what the prince was saying was surprising. His eyes never left Ngozi as he continued. "Ngozi does not dance for herself. She dances for all of us. She dances with a pure heart. She dances with a strength that is quiet, yet powerful. I have seen what I needed to see, and I know in my heart that she is the one to stand beside me as the queen of this kingdom." The village fell into stunned silence. "Ngozi," some murmured. The surprise was evident. They had never imagined the prince would choose her. Many had thought she was too quiet, too reserved. What about Adora? What about Kemi? They thought. But Akpala didn't pause for their reactions. "I choose Ngozi to be my wife and the queen of this land." The words hung in the air, like a stone dropped into a pond. The shock spread quickly through the crowd. People exchanged glances, and some even shook their heads in disbelief. Ngozi? They hadn't expected it, but there was no doubt in Akpala's voice. He had made his choice, and it was clear. Ngozi stood still, her heart racing. She had not expected this. She had come to dance, to serve, and now, this? The prince was looking at her with a softness in his eyes, a look that said more than just words ever could. With a deep breath, she bowed, her face full of grace, but inside, her heart was pounding. "Thank you, my prince," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I will serve you and the kingdom with all my heart." The crowd remained still for a moment. No one moved. No one spoke. Then slowly, they began to clap. It wasn't loud at first, but then the claps grew stronger. People could see the wisdom in the prince's choice, even if they hadn't expected it. They knew that the strength of a leader wasn't just in their power, but in their hearts. And Ngozi's heart had shown through clearly in her dance. As the applause grew louder, Akpala smiled softly. He knew that this choice was the right one. Together, he and Ngozi would lead the kingdom into a new era, an era of wisdom, strength, and love. The future of the kingdom had been decided. The prince had chosen his queen, and as the villagers cheered, they knew the best was yet to come. As the preparations for the grand wedding began, excitement filled the air. The people of the kingdom were busy with the final touches, the dresses, the music, the feasts. But in the midst of this joy, a dark secret began to surface. It was Ngozi who first sensed something was wrong. As she walked through the palace halls, she overheard two palace guards talking in low voices. Their words were hushed, but she caught the meaning. Something was not right about the marriage. Adora's father, the wealthy merchant, was planning something evil. He had been secretly plotting to use the marriage to the prince as a way to gain power over the kingdom. Is it true? Ngozi whispered to herself, her heart racing. Can Adora really be a part of this? Later that evening, Ngozi met with Akpala in the royal gardens. The evening air was cool, and the full moon cast a soft glow over the palace walls. She told him everything she had overheard. "Akpala," Ngozi began, her voice serious, "I don't trust Adora's father. I overheard something tonight, something troubling. He's planning to use you and Adora's marriage to take control of the kingdom." Akpala frowned, his face serious. "Are you sure?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "How can that be? He seemed so kind, so honorable." "That's what he wants you to think, but I know his heart. I feel it," Ngozi replied, her eyes firm. "There's more going on here than you realize. We must find out the truth." Akpala thought for a moment, then nodded. "We will find the truth together." The next day, they began to dig deeper. They spoke with trusted advisors and carefully questioned Adora. At first, Adora denied everything, her face turning pale as she tried to cover up the truth. But as the prince and Ngozi pressed harder, the lies began to unravel. "It's true, isn't it, Adora?" Akpala asked, his voice firm, but not cruel. "Your father was planning to use you to gain power over the kingdom." Adora's eyes filled with tears. She looked down, ashamed. "I didn't know," she said, her voice shaking. "I didn't know he was planning all of this. He said we would rule together, but I see now it was all a lie." Ngozi stepped forward, her voice calm but filled with authority. "Adora, we have to protect the kingdom. Your father's plan is dangerous. We can't let it happen." The prince and Ngozi immediately called for the kingdom's elders and the royal council. Together, they uncovered the full extent of the plot. Adora's father had been secretly meeting with foreign merchants and political leaders, planning to overthrow Akpala once he became king. It was a shocking betrayal. Adora's father was taken into custody, and the plot to take control of the kingdom was stopped before it could cause any harm. Adora, heartbroken and ashamed, left the palace, her dreams shattered. The kingdom was safe, but the weight of the betrayal was felt by all. Akpala and Ngozi had worked together to uncover the truth, and their bond had grown stronger. The people knew that the prince had chosen wisely, and the future of the kingdom was secure. The wedding day arrived, and the kingdom buzzed with excitement. The streets were lined with flowers, and the air was filled with the sounds of music and laughter. People came from every corner of the land to witness the coronation of the new king and queen. In the great palace hall, the Prince Akpala stood before the people, wearing his royal robes. His eyes were steady, filled with determination, but there was also a softness to his gaze. Today was not just about him. It was about the kingdom, and the woman standing beside him, Ngozi, the woman who had danced her way into his heart, stood next to him. Her face was calm, but her eyes shone with quiet strength. She was ready to serve the kingdom, to serve the people, and to stand beside Akpala as his queen. The royal priest stepped forward, holding the crown. The whole kingdom held its breath. Do you, Akpala, son of King Buzugbe, swear to rule with wisdom, fairness, and love? He asked. Akpala looked out at the people, his voice strong. I swear before you all to rule with all the strength I have. I will protect this kingdom and serve the people as my father did. With my queen by my side, I will make sure peace and prosperity reign in this land. The priest then turned to Ngozi. Do you, Ngozi, promise to support your husband, to guide him with wisdom, and to serve the people with a pure heart? Ngozi's voice was soft, but filled with certainty. I do. I promise to stand by Akpala's side, not as his equal in power, but as his equal in heart. Together we will serve this kingdom. The crowns were placed upon their heads, Akpala as king and Ngozi as queen. The crowd erupted into cheers, their voice filled with joy and hope. The prince and queen have not just been crowned, they had earned the love and trust of the people. As the coronation ceremony came to a close, Akpala turned to Ngozi. We will do this together, my queen. We will lead with our hearts, not our power. Ngozi smiled, her heart full. Together, Akpala, always together. And so, the kingdom entered a new era, one of wisdom, fairness, and love. Akpala and Ngozi ruled with strength and kindness, guiding the kingdom into greater prosperity. The people adored them, not for their titles, but for their hearts. The story of how Ngozi's dance won the prince's heart and saved the kingdom became a legend. It was told for generations, a reminder to all that true beauty lies not in what we see, but in the strength of one's heart, the purity of one's soul, and the love one gives to others. And with that, the kingdom flourished under the rule of King Akpala and Queen Ngozi, a reign built not on power or wealth, but on love, wisdom, and unwavering integrity. The tale of King Akpala and Queen Ngozi shows that true leadership comes from within, and that the most important qualities in a leader are kindness, wisdom, and integrity. The kingdom flourished under their rule, and they were remembered as the rulers who led with love and fairness. Thank you for watching. If you liked the story, please give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. I will be there to chat. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. That way, you will know when a new story is uploaded. Thanks again, and see you in the next story.